So, former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton is expected to surrender today after being indicted on 18 charges related to mishandling of classified documents. Bolton responded to the indictment saying, quote, "I have devoted my life to America's foreign policy and national security. I would never compromise those goals. I tried to do that during my tenure in the first Trump administration, but resigned when it became impossible to do so." These charges are not just about his focus on me or my diaries, but his intensive effort to intimidate his opponents. Fox News contributor and George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley joins us now. Professor, thanks so much for joining the program. I just want to go into some of the documents that he had. So there was some info on future attacks, foreign intel sharing, adversary covert action, sensitive human intel sources, and covert operation in assessments. Just face value. You know, you can talk about political targeting and all of that, but that is damning evidence from the Bureau.
It's very damning, and we still have to learn about the timeline of when this information was transmitted. But certainly this information is classified at the highest levels because this is information that get people killed. I mean, this is the type of information that, if it gets out, can reveal sources and methods that represent really threatening consequences for national security. And keep in mind that in an earlier case, a federal judge said that he could not force Bolton to bring back and destroy all of the books that he had published with this company. But he said, you did undermine national security. This book does that. And so that's sort of the context here. And the other thing about this, Lawrence, is that this was a long-standing series of objections. He was investigated during the Biden administration. Before that was scuttled. But he had basically defied a lot of the objections from the intelligence community. And now this indictment says that he was sending this information to what appears to be his wife and daughter, who, of course, have no clearances, and that it might have even been hacked by the Iranian government or its associates.
I know it's not necessary to prove intent, but it does make it more difficult for him that they warned him before he decided to do this, and yet he kind of scuffed at it and proceeded. I want to go to his comments back in January 2023. This is what he had to say about handling classified documents. Let's watch it.
It sets a bad example for the thousands of other people in the federal bureaucracy who have security clearances, because if the people at the top can be casual about it and then get away with it, that is not a good lesson to teach.
It's like one of those moments, the audacity for me. Like, how could you be so strong? And then we find all this information.
Well, you know, Lawrence, those clips, I can tell you as a criminal defense attorney, probably rule out his ever being put on the stand because while the court might not allow those to be admitted initially, they very well could be admitted to impeach him or rebut him. And I don't think he can take the risk because he looks like an utter hypocrite. I mean, this indictment really shows a level of casual treatment of intelligence information that's quite shocking. He comes across like a teenager in a chat room. I mean, he's sending this stuff by email after all the controversies that we have had for years about trying to secure this type of information. And Lawrence, there's two arguments here that will not work. One is, well, this is just old classified material. That doesn't fly. I mean, if the question is it classified or not? That's why jurors tend to view these as rather cut and dry questions. The other argument, which sort of was suggested by his counsel, is, well, everyone does this. This is just keeping a diary. That's not going to work either. No. You know, whether you transmit the document or the contents, it's classified and it's subject to these criminal laws. And of course, the ambassador knows that the diaries are property of the U.S. government when there's intelligence on there as well, when you're taking those notes. I want to go to a more complicated case, and that's the domestic terrorism charges. Cameron Arnold, as well as Zachary Everett, they're part of Antifa. They're being charged with providing material support for terrorists, attempted murder of federal officers, discharging firearms in furtherance of a crime of violence, and during the attempted murder. This is going to be a complicated case, not from the murder charges and all that. Those statutes are pretty clear.
But the domestic terrorism, Professor, how are they going to, the government going to attack those arguments?
Well, Lawrence, it's been very interesting. We've been waiting to see which case the administration would pick to roll out the terrorism charges against Antifa. They picked this one for some obvious reasons. One was the level of organization and concealment. They used special programs to encrypt their communications. They had a lot of Antifa material around, including calling for a class war, but also there's an attempted murder claim here against these officers. So when they first started to destroy property, when the officers showed up, then someone screamed, "Get the guns." And then you had an officer shot in the throat. So there's a good reason why they picked this particular case to establish it. Keep in mind, Lawrence, a lot of Democratic leaders are just recently saying Antifa really doesn't exist. Even leaders like Minnesota Attorney General Ellison, who previously embraced Antifa and said that this is a great group because it's going to put the fear of God into Trump, and then recently said, I don't even know what Antifa is. It's really not a group. Well, also you had Representative Dan Goldman saying, I dare you to name a member. Well, the administration just named two. And they are charging them not just with these other very serious crimes, but with a terrorism-related crime related to material support.
Since these are so aggressive, the charges, I look forward to the deal they cut and give up the other members. We'll be following. Thank you, Professor.